Great. I think we've actually hit 4 o'clock, your guys' time, so we can get started. My name is Katie Boyd, and Deb is also going to help facilitate today. Deb Morrison is here from the University of Washington. I'm at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I'm here to help you guys learn a little bit more about CLEAN and how it can help you teach about climate and energy. So I think we can go ahead and get started, right? Are you guys ready, Deb and Ellen?
Yep. I'm here too and ready to go.
Oh,
Perfect.
great.
Hi, Amber.
You. Hey.
Hey.
All right.
All right.
So I think Ellen was going to take this part.
Yeah, so it's really my honor to do the honoring of the stewards of the land slide. I'm in Olympia, Washington, and so for those who know the Thurston County, South Puget Sound area, know that there are many tribes, tribal nations that lived on these lands. But today I want to acknowledge the traditional lands of the Nisqually and Nisquaxin people, and we honor their stewardship of the land, the past, present, and future, and learn how to engage our students in climate science and next generation science so that we can make good decisions that heal our planet and protect our environment. The Nisqually people have been in this area for 10,000 years, and they are the people of the water and also known as the people of the grass. The Nisquaxin people are the people of the water, and they were one of the first tribal nations to sign a treaty with in the Washington Territory in 1854. And so their lands were quite extensive. They extended from the Cascades all the way to Mount St. Helens. So it's quite a privilege for me to be able to acknowledge them today.
Thank you. Thanks, Ellen.
All right, so today in this webinar, we have a couple different goals. One of them is to introduce the CLEAN collection, which is the Climate Literacy, Energy, and Awareness Network collection. We also want to make sure that everybody participating finds at least one resource to address a pressing need of your own in teaching around climate change. So we're going to give you time to kind of dive into the collection and explore it a little bit for your own purposes. And also we're going to take some time to explore professional learning resources to support the teaching of climate. So what are the common alternative understandings that youth have, and how can we help to resource those for teachers so that you know where to go and can dig into some good solid information on those areas.
Yeah. And I'm, Deb pulled me in here. So I'm the program manager for CLEAN, and I'm going to be telling you guys all about our program, but just to set it up here, sort of background, I like to use this figure because it really just illustrates how complex this is, right? The climate system, and CLEAN really focuses on climate and energy. And so if you consider then the societal use of energy as well as ecological energy and all of that moving through the system is really complex. So I actually studied atmospheric science for one of in school for a little while, and I'll tell you, I don't think I know enough about it to be able to teach all the different aspects in a classroom, despite sort of having that background. So I don't think we should necessarily expect that of teachers either, and especially teachers who may not have had any of this really in their schooling growing up. I know I didn't get it till I was in college. So it's a really complex, big topic to teach, and a lot of teachers struggle with that. And that's what we're here to really help you be able to break it down and make it more manageable for you. So CLEAN is, as Deb mentioned, the Climate Literacy and Energy Awareness Network. We call our sort of website the portal to CLEAN, and there's really three big pillars of CLEAN. The collection that Deb mentioned, and this is a collection of resources that we haven't developed, but we've put through a review process. So they're quality in science and in pedagogy, and help address all the different aspects of teaching about climate and energy. And then we have our guidance for teaching climate and energy. And those are all our background knowledge pages. We have tips for teaching about different things. We have these sorts of webinars like this. We do a lot of other kinds of resources to help support you in your teaching. And then the third portion is the CLEAN network. And that is a community of practice of stakeholders who have a stake in climate and energy literacy. So it's educators, it's people like Deb and I who support education, it's people in informal education, it's really a lot of people in a lot of different fields, but all who have this sort of interest in climate and energy education and literacy in general. So the collection is sort of the biggest pillar that we support and helps teachers. We have over 700 resources. They're all online, easily accessible, free to access. So we don't put anything in our collection that you have to pay for. They're all classroom ready. So we think of that as like a teacher could take this and implement it fairly easily in their classroom. We have all kinds of different resources, including learning activities. So that's like a single class or maybe a couple of class lesson plans. We have videos, we have visualizations. So some things we've taken from sites such as NOAA or NASA, and they have this particular graph, or they have this different simulation you can kind of play around with. So we have a bunch of those. And as I mentioned, they've all been put through this rigorous review process. So we have educators as well as scientists review the resources, and we have multiple levels of review, and so they're all made sure to be quality by experts. We've also done a lot of work over the last few years to align the collection with the NGSS. So it was already aligned with the climate and energy literacy principles, and that was developed, that was a big effort that kind of started CLEAN actually, was developing those frameworks. They really get at the big ideas, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And so that was the initial framework of the CLEAN collection, was to align it through the different topics of climate and energy. And the last couple of years with the next generation science standards coming out, we've done a lot of work to tag our resources with different standards they address, and then also providing resources I'll get into to help you take the resources and actually address some of the bigger 3D learning aspects of NGSS. We really focus on secondary education, and then as I mentioned, these are resources we have not developed ourselves, but we sort of try to keep up with looking for more and more resources through the internet, and then taking them and trying to curate them, and provide through that curation and review process, we're able to provide a lot of information about the resources. So this is a busy diagram. You don't have to understand it or know the details of it, but I just wanted to show it because this is the review process all of our resources go through. So you can see that they're really looked at by at least, this review camp actually is usually 4 people looking at each resource. So we have several rounds of review before that, plus the review camp, and then we send it out to an expert scientist to make sure the science is accurate and up to date. So at least 6 or 7 people have looked at every resource that's been in our collection.
So just to sort of emphasize what Katie's saying there, one of the things that's really important about the CLEAN collection over a straight up Google search for resources is the fact that these resources have been vetted both by teachers and by scientists. So if you're going to go and search for climate education resources, it's better to start in the CLEAN collection, and if you can't find what you want, then go to other sources after that.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. I really agree. And so through that review process, the other thing that's really beneficial that comes out of that is then we have a page for each of our resources, and it looks like this. And you can see at the top here, there's a link to the activity itself. So this takes you to an outside organization's page where this activity is housed, where you can get all the materials and resources you need to do this activity. But the other thing that we provide through our review is this notes from our reviewers. So we have a little description of what the resource is. We try to say how long it takes. Usually, I don't see that in this particular one, but we include teaching tips, so things you might need to know about to teach it. We have little blurbs from the scientists who review it, and then there's another section below that's about the pedagogy from the educators who reviewed it. So a lot of just information about these resources. And then the right side here is all the tags that they have, and I'll talk about more how to search the collection, but each resource is then also put through a rigorous tagging process to make sure that a person actually tags it versus just going through an automated process. And this allows us to search the collection more easily by things like topics and grade level. And then that's where we do our NGSS tagging as well. So I'll get into more of that later. Oh, or right here. So when you do search the collection, this is really nice. All those tags that were done usually by people with education backgrounds, because we have the NGSS tagging as part of it. So they're really the ones kind of going through and making sure that it fits into this or that cross-cutting concept or disciplinary core idea. And so when you do actually get into our search on the right side, you can then refine all your results and do your searches through these different things. We have the resource type, if you're looking for a video, if you're looking for an activity. We have the grade level, the standards. And then we also have some tags like regional focus or data set use. And this is really useful for teachers who are trying to find the data set use, for example, means that this is an activity where students are using sort of a real world data set. And then we have all our topics that they're tagged by as well. So it makes it really much easier to search the collection. The other thing I wanted to mention about searching was the NGSS tags. So we have all these tags, and you can just search by the, as I mentioned, the DCI or the cross-cutting concept. But the other thing that we've done is to try to make it easier to look through the collection by the standards. We have 3 different ways you can actually search our collection for NGSS aligned resources. One is the at a glance tables, and these are really nice because we've actually taken the NGSS that are aligned with climate and energy topics, and only those ones. So this doesn't have all of the standards. This is just the ones relevant really to our collection. And we've broken them out by middle school and high school. And so you can see if you click on one of these, it takes you and actually broadens that topic. And what did I do? Now I can't. There we go, get back. So I just clicked on this Show High School Earth and Space Science and Clean, and it breaks it out and shows me all the different NGSS aligned with that. And then you can click on a specific one. So here's physical models of computers, and click on that. And the See Clean Resources takes you into an actual search that then has that disciplinary core idea already tagged for you. So that's one way to do it, and that's really nice. And then from there, you can kind of use these other tags to then search for if you want specifically a lesson plan, or you're looking for something with data set use. So you can kind of use those tags still. The other thing that we've done is if you really have no idea, so that what I just said is more of you're looking for a specific standard you want to address. So really kind of that DCI level of like trying to address a specific topic or a specific practice or something like that. The other way is if you're like, I have no idea what standard would be good right now, or what NGSS is new to me. I don't really know what standards there are in these topics. So we've done this browse by NGSS, and this allows for searching the clean collection by NGSS topics, but you can kind of dig down into which topic before you do the search. So here is sort of more of this big idea, like what are the NGSS topics addressed sort of in, we've decided to try to break them into these 2 different categories of more of the science behind climate change, and then this idea of kind of solutions, and that gets into a little bit more of the energy topics. And so from there, then you can say, well, I'm really looking for more of the science, or I'm really looking for something a little bit on the solution side, and you can choose your grade level. So here I clicked high school, and then it brings this up. And this is really nice because then this really can tell you which of the standards are actually addressed in that sort of broad idea or broad topic that we came up with. And then from there, you can choose one of these and then choose if you're looking for an activity or visualization or video. And again, that will then take you into the actual search here. So you can see that activity stayed, that was the high school was an original thing I chose, and then this was the science and engineering practice that sort of came out of that search. So this is really to help you just sort of browse through NGSS, what's even out there, and then look for resources for that. And again, you can always add other NGSS tags or other tags that you want in the actual search there. And then the third way is kind of what I talked about at the beginning, where you could just do a sort of normal search. So from our webpage, cleannet.org, if you want to check this out for yourself, and we're going to ask you guys to do that in a few minutes. So this is the search the collection, as this is our main page, and this big search the collection big orange button is how you just get straight into our collection. And so if you're saying, I really want to look at ocean acidification and then think about the standards, you know, this is one way to do that. So I want to look at ocean acidification, but I definitely want something that, you know, maybe there's a specific performance expectation I want to make sure is addressed in my lesson plan or in this particular activity I want to do or whatever. So then you can actually just use the tags on the right to narrow down your search. So this is just an example of one of those. Furthering, when I said ocean acidification, you can see in the sort of original search, there were 42 matches. And then if you're looking for a specific, I think in here it was a science and engineering practice. And then, oh, somebody did put a disciplinary core idea matter and its interactions here. And that really narrowed it down. So the tags are just really nice also for trying to help narrow down your searches, because we only have 700. So unlike Google, where you get, you know, 1 million in the first second of your search, it's not that bad, but it is. Sometimes you can have 50 or 100 things come up, and the tags really help you sort of narrow that down to see what you're looking for.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a minute and just do a treasure hunt of the Clean collection. So we're going to take until 4:30. And what we would like you to do is we would like you to go to this link. I put it in the chat window.
Oh, you did, thanks.
Yeah, and I would like you to find a clean resource using one of the search methods that we've talked about in the slides. Did everybody get the slide link, Katie? Did people get a link to the slides already?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Deb. I did put
We'll
them
stick that in the
online,
chat.
but I didn't actually do it
It's okay.
yet.
So we'll stick it in the chat window as well. So if you want to go back and look in the slides at the different search methods. And we'd like you to think about something that you're teaching between now and the end of school. And maybe search in that topic window of what you're working on, either using the NGSS, using a keyword, or one of the other search methods that Katie's talked about. So just go and explore. And what we'd like you to do is come back and then put what you found, the resource you found, into the chat window and some comment about your search and what you found interesting about the thing that you found. Okay? All right, so go ahead and take from now until 4:30, and so we'd like to see your comments in the chat window at 4:30.
So Deb, I'm going to put in, this is our webinars page. At the very bottom of it is where I'm going to post the recording for this video. And that's also where I posted the PDF of the slides. But because it's all the way at the bottom of the page, and I tried to set up, I thought I set up a link that would link straight to the bottom of the page, but here is the direct link to the PDF.
Okay. You're sending them privately to me, so I'm just
Oh,
reposting them to the. No, it's okay. There you go.
Thank you. I don't know why I was stuck on yours. Just you. And I think we forgot to mention at the beginning, but generally speaking, if you do have any questions or you want to interject, the chat is a good way to do it. Deb's monitoring that, so please feel free to put in any questions or comments or anything you'd like to kind of get out to the rest of the webinar attendees into the chat.
Katie, we had a question in the chat about if there's a way to save or bookmark a resource. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, I muted myself. We don't have anything within our system to be able to do that, just because we don't have like a login. So we don't, make you guys sort of create an account or anything like that. So there's not really a way for us to know that you're the same one coming back in every time. I do know that there are a lot of people who bookmark certain resources for themselves, though, because we get a lot of our traffic. A lot of it comes from people finding us through Google or other searches, but we get a lot of our traffic that goes straight to like a teaching climate page, or goes straight to a resource page. And that's usually means there's a teacher who found that resource and likes it and has bookmarked it for themselves. I've also had, there's a school district near us who likes to use Clean enough that they've actually bookmarked a few things in there. They have like a Google Classroom information about how to use Clean, and they've bookmarked some things. So there are ways to do that, but we don't have anything directly in our site to do that.
Great.
That's a good idea, though. I'm not opposed to trying to set something like that up. I don't
The
know
only disadvantage is, like, and we had this in some of the learn more about climate issues when they instituted login, that the login can be a bit of a buffer for teachers to engage, because it's one more password that you have to remember. So the fact that we don't have a password here is kind of lovely.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, but. And that's the other nice thing, is we don't, just following up on that, we don't change the links at all. So a resource of ours, The only time it might change is if that resource is no longer supported by the organization. So if the link itself is broken and we can't find the resource anywhere else on that site, we'll archive it, and you can still come to the resource from the same link you had. So if you've bookmarked something, and you can still come to it, but what it'll say is basically this resource is no longer in our collection. But we do monitor, like we have a quarterly check that we do on our links, and we try to, as much as we can, try to go through all 700 and check for broken links and update them with new links when we can find them. We'll email the organizations to see if they still have the resource somewhere else. So we do a lot of work on our end to maintain things. So I actually have done just a bunch recently. There was a group in Canada that had resources, and they changed the way their website was set up. So they have all the same units, but they're just at different links. And we had about 9 of their lesson plans that I keep sort of finding coming up in our broken link search. And I think I fixed them all now. But that's where like I went and found the link, the new link to that lesson, came back and fixed it in our system. And so your link that you bookmark on our site stays the same. And then you just know that from our website, you can always get to that. So that is one advantage of bookmarking our site versus bookmarking the resources site itself, because we do a lot of work on our end to maintain the links are updated.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, so you have about 4 more minutes or so if you want to just finish off your search and start chatting a note into the chat box about, I see there's a few folks who have saved some things there.
And the other thing I did with another webinar, if you guys bookmark it yourself, but I'm also happy, if everybody's comfortable with it, I'm happy to also post a transcript of the chat feature with the recording tomorrow. So if you're opposed to that, please send a message, a direct message to me in an email, and I can take that into account. But otherwise, I think if I don't get any sort of don't do that messages, then I'm going to plan to do that tomorrow when I post the recording. So I don't see why it'd be a problem, but I'm just going to throw it out there in case somebody's not comfortable with it.
Okay.
And then that way you can see some of the other resources other people found that you weren't able to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as some of you are finding, many of the resources in this collection can be used inside the classroom, but also in informal learning contexts or community-based learning contexts. So they're more versatile. And many of the large providers of climate-related education in the nation, so folks like NASA and NOAA, and I'm sure you can reel them off better than I can, Katie, but a lot of their resources are inside this collection as well.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, NOAA and NASA are really go-to places for us to get resources from. So there's a lot of those in there. And yeah, you can find them on their site. But the nice thing about ours is then you know it's gone through a review process and is quality. So
yeah, the teacher review process in that case is helpful.
Yeah.
That's great.
And yeah, we do have resources, as Deb mentioned, that really span the gamut in terms of level. We do have things that can be used in informal contexts at really all grade levels and with all pupils, but we focused our collection on middle school and through undergraduate. So that grade sort of 6 to 16 was the main focus of the resources we were looking for.
Are more people still putting in elementary-based resources, or?
We're trying to. We're actually working with NASA to see if we can get some funding, because some of their elementary resources related to climate are going away from another project not being supported anymore. And so we're working with them to see if we can actually start a whole sort of within our collection, but a new set of resources to implement focused on elementary. Yeah, so we're trying to get that going.
It's really needed.
I totally agree. Yeah.
All right, so let's continue. It looks like most folks have contributed to the chat window, and super helpful. Okay, so if we want to keep going here.
Yeah, I hope you guys found some good resources. I'm excited to check out what you put in the chat. I don't know why I'm unable to see it at the moment, but thanks for monitoring that, Deb. So the next portion, and this is, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's sort of three big pillars to clean. And the second big pillar is this guidance for teaching climate and energy. And if you go to our main webpage, again, our cleannet.org, and you click on now, this is instead of the big blue box, it's the big green box. If you click on that one, it takes you into this guidance resources page, and it actually takes you to one more before this, but then you click on the actual back guidance page and it's here. The page before this just includes a lot of the other resources and toolkit, and I'll mention that in a minute, but basically the main pages in here are these guidance pages, and we have teaching climate and teaching energy, and these are organized by the principles of climate literacy and then the principles of energy literacy. These were developed both, I think, about 10 years ago, and so these literacy principles are really the sort of big ideas of climate and energy, and they're organized around 7 larger topics, and within each of those there's sort of these subtopics. So for example, I think for climate, one of the big ones is you know, where does the energy come from? And then the subtopic is sort of like it starts from the sun and then it, you know, moves around the climate in different ways. So for each of those bigger topics, the 7 principles of climate or energy literacy, there's, I think, 7 for both of them. We have a page for each one of those big ideas. And on each of those web pages, there's a summary for the concept itself, challenges teachers might face in teaching this in the classroom, and then some suggested approaches for handling the topic. And we also have a link that you can get back to find resources that are relevant to that topic. So this is what one of those pages looks like. This is for Climate Literacy Principle 2, where climate is regulated by complex interactions among components of the Earth system. And I think this is the one I was just talking about, where I think then the subtopics within this, if you were to look at the actual Climate Literacy Principle booklet, is sort of the energy comes from the sun, and then talks about weather or water and movement, and then talks about the carbon cycle and movement of organic molecules and things like that. But here basically is the sort of key concept, description of the concept, and then you can see down here, if you keep scrolling, it starts getting into more of how do you teach this and what are some misconceptions students have and things like that. And on the left, there's always this navigation, so you can see, as I mentioned, there's sort of these 7 principles, and so you can click through all of these and look through different topics. And same with energy. So we have the exact same sort of setup here for energy principles. There's also 7 of those, and just goes through each principle with more of that information. And you can always use the left side here to kind of navigate through the different background pages. And then this is the other.
Interject before you
please.
jump.
Yeah.
So there was a comment by Shannon, and I kind of echo that comment about the idea of these guidance pages really help to take and break down this large, complicated field of climate education into small, manageable chunks that themselves have guidance about where you're going to hit snags with students, where you're going to want to bridge current everyday understandings to scientifically accurate understandings. So they're really, really helpful for grounding teachers in what it is that you're teaching in this moment, so that you don't feel unprepared when you hit a classroom with these topics.
Yeah, it's exactly, and great background information, and just it's a great reference to come back to. So this is another thing that teachers will often bookmark, is one of these pages. I think our most popular of these, as you can imagine, is number 6, humans affect climate. That's a big topic these days, and that's probably the most commonly referenced of these pages. And I think oftentimes we see teachers come in here, as I mentioned before, like with a resource as a direct link. So they've bookmarked it somewhere. So we have a lot of teachers who really use this as reference for themselves to keep coming back to it. And then on each of these, I didn't point this out, but the other really cool thing, and I could even show you guys this on a website maybe, but the other really cool thing is we have this climate literacy quiz, and then same thing for energy. We have an energy awareness quiz, and these are really popular too because you can use them yourself or you can have students use them. And I'm actually just going to quickly pop out and show you guys those quizzes because I actually think they're great references as well. And can you still see my screen now?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so this is nice because these quizzes, what they do is it asks the question, and then once you've answered it, you can actually then, so like I might, oh, that's wrong, right? And then I didn't even read it. What is there? So I was right. But the other cool thing is it shows explanation that is hidden most of the time, and that gives just a quick, simple little background about this particular question. So this is really popular as well, and it's another of those resources in there.
Yeah, that's basically a resource to help you build the knowledge as you need it and expand your knowledge as you go through this space.
Yeah. And so then the other part of the sort of guidance section of our website, as I mentioned before, we have the Teaching Climate, Teaching Energy pages, and then we have this, what we call our Educator Toolbox. And this is just kind of everything else we do to help support you teaching about climate and energy. And so we have these creating your own units I'll talk about a little bit more later, and that's actually the same thing. Our system investigation is very similar to that. We have some teaching resources related to the National Climate Assessment. We have these webinars. We have a bunch of webinars. We do a regular series and we put the recordings for those online. And that references, we have one that references how to browse with NGSS. We have one that references how to do the units. We have one that references just the searching. And then we have one that references the teaching guidance pages. So they're all 15 minutes long. If you need any sort of reminders about any of this information, you're welcome to go there and see the recordings of those webinars. And then the other thing that we do is a STEM Flash newsletter, and that is where we try to highlight resources based around current event topics. And I'll talk a little bit about that again later. Oh, right here. I thought it was coming up. So the STEM Flash is a cool resource. Also, if you want to sign up for this, you can get to it sort of through this toolbox. But the other thing is we have a big orange button that looks just like this in the bottom right. It's on our front page of our website. So I think it's on the sort of bottom left side of our main page of our website. And if you click on this big orange link, that'll sign you up for a STEM Flash newsletter. And this comes every 2 weeks or so. And it basically tries to highlight, like I said, something that we saw recently going around, I don't know, the news, or just people have been talking about, or current events like the flooding recently. We did one that highlighted that. Last year we did one highlighting wildfires. So we try to keep something that's current in here, and then we find a couple resources that address that topic, usually like an activity in a video or something shorter and something longer, and highlight those resources as a way you can teach about this topic. And then we'll put like an article or something that really references what's happening currently. And so this is a really nice way. The other cool thing about this is not only do we send this every 2 weeks in an email, but also we archive them all online. So if you want to go and see, oh my gosh, I really want something that deals with wildfires, then, and you don't want to search through the whole collection, you could just reference our wildfires STEM Flash we did last summer and look at a couple resources there. So it's a really nice resource, I think, for trying to align resources with current events and try to just keep up with all these topics, especially because it seems like it's becoming more of a thing to talk about these days. So it's really nice to have that connection.
All right, so we're going to get you to take about 5 minutes this time and just explore. I put the link into the chat box. Explore one aspect of the teacher guidance. So dive down into whichever of those buttons that you think is interesting for you at the moment. I know some of you have been doing this as we're talking too, but take a few minutes. And if you can just note for us what you found interesting or what was challenging as well, we're happy to hear either side of that as you sort of dig into the guidance for teachers. Thanks so much, Ellen, for being able to be here. Oh no, you're the super cool resources. I thought you were the person who just said they had to go by. Sorry.
Well, whoever did have to leave, thanks for joining. This is, there's just a couple more slides at the end that we were just going to kind of wrap up with. I don't think there's a whole lot you're going to miss. So thank you so much for joining us.
All right, and we'll take another minute and then we will go ahead and continue and just finish off.
Has anybody put any resources in the chat that they mentioned finding yet or no?
Couple things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody's lost in the collection.
Yeah.
Which is a good sign.
Nice. Oh, some great tools. Yeah.
Oh, somebody signed up for the STEM Flash. That's awesome.
Great. Oh.
Oh, there was a problem with it.
Elizabeth Schmidt.
Oh, it didn't send her back to the collection.
That's good to know, actually. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I work for CIRES, Education and Outreach. We manage CLEAN. There's a lot of groups and organizations who work on CLEAN because it's such a big project, but we are sort of the management for this project. So I think that's probably why we have our regular teacher newsletter for CIRES, Education Outreach, and this one, and we sort of manage it through the same MailChimp. So I bet it probably is just our default to send back to the CIRES Education Outreach site rather, or say something about CIRES Education Outreach. But that's really good to know. I'm going to make a note of that so we can try to fix that. So thank you.
All right. So we can keep going here, Katie.
Great. So let me go back to great. So the last piece I just wanted to mention here, well, a couple of pieces actually, one of which is the Clean Network. And this is, as I mentioned before, a community of practice of climate and energy literacy stakeholders and educators. And so the way you get into the sort of Clean Network is this big orange button on the main page. And this is really nice. As I mentioned, there's some teachers, and then there's also a lot of people like us who support education. And so we have a couple different ways we connect with each other. We have an email list, and so you can join the Clean Network and sign up for our email list. It's fairly active, but I am on a few email lists, and I feel like this one's not overwhelming, but you can also, if it's overwhelming for you, sign up as a batch so you can get them just on sort of a daily set of emails instead of each email. It's a nice thing. As I mentioned, I don't think it's full of teachers. It's full of a lot of education people. I feel like it might be sort of half teachers and half other educators sort of support. But it's a great resource just for like, I'm having this trouble teaching about this topic. What do you guys think? You know, or we do a lot of also coordinating for large conferences and other things like that through there. But I feel like it's a great resource of people who are interested in this topic that are talking about how they're doing this topic or new resources or new things they found for teaching about climate. It's just a great resource for that. So if you're interested, please sign up for the email list. And then we also have teleconference calls on Tuesday afternoons, which is not ideal for teachers. So this part of the network isn't quite as much as heavily teacher involved, I feel like. But if you're interested, you're always welcome to join us. You just have to be part of the Clean Network to join for the Tuesday calls. But we do Tuesday afternoons, and we do often, especially in the summer, we'll have teachers on the call, and they might present about some of the work they've done bringing climate change education into their classroom and things like that. Last year, we did a teacher who presented, it was so cool, about her experience doing an eco challenge with Project Drawdown, which I think they're currently doing now too. Again, so that was really cool to see and hear. So we do have teachers on there, and we do really appreciate when we get teachers, and they just tend to be more active in the summer, which is totally fine. But yeah, because the teleconference calls are 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, so it's not ideal, but we love to have teachers on there when we can. The other piece I wanted to mention, and I think somebody in the chat actually found this, which is great. So we also have this create your own unit guide. We actually have two ways that you can sort of create NGSS based units. And this gets at this sort of 3D learning aspect that's a big part of NGSS, where you really have to kind of, all of our resources are, as we say, NGS aligned, and we've tagged them with the different standards, but to really get at that big sort of idea of learning that NGSS is trying to bring, that 3D learning aspect, you really have to kind of design larger units and think about your teaching in that sort of bigger picture way, right? And so we've tried to create some resources to help you take clean resources and put them into a unit that would help you do that. And then on top of that, we've also had a master or a teacher that's worked with clean before. Cheryl Manning is awesome, and she helped us actually create 3 exemplar units that you can use, and it's great because I love them. You can actually see in there, she's created these different activities you can do, and in several of them she's like suggested a specific clean resource, but I feel like for most of them she's tried to suggest multiple different clean resources that can be used for each of that part of the lesson or unit. So so check those out. It's really, I think they're really great. and good resources and just good examples. So if you don't want to create your own, you can use one of these, but it's also just a good example for how you might go about creating one of your own. I don't think I put it in here. Oh, these are just the exemplar units. I don't think I put it in here, but there's one more way that you can do this sort of unit creation, and that's on that toolbox I showed earlier. There's something called the Earth System Investigations, and it's just sort of a different way of going about this unit creation to get at NGSS and 3D learning. So that's sort of another thing that we've developed and that you can try to do. It's similar, it's just really kind of coming at it from a different way through the NGSS. I think this might start out with thinking about your one, I think, starts with more performance expectations, and the other starts with something else. I can't remember exactly the differences because I didn't help develop them, so I apologize about that. But they're just a little bit different in terms of how to do it, but very similar in what you're trying to do. And then, yeah, the last piece was just, if you guys are interested, we love to have teachers get involved with us. So what are the ways you can get involved? You can use our resources and teaching guidance, as I've mentioned all this way. If I can get through the rest of this. Is that all that was on this slide? No, okay, I thought so. It's just being slow. You can sign up for our STEM Flash, as somebody's already done, yay! That's a great way to just keep up with what is going on currently out there. You can watch our webinars, as I mentioned. And the other thing is, if you have a resource that you really like for teaching about this stuff and you don't see it in our network or in our collection, you can submit it to us. So we actually do have on a sort of get involved page, we have a resource submission page. If you have trouble with it or you can't find it, you can always just email me directly with a resource and I can get in there for you as well. But we do have this way to have other people suggest resources to get into our review process. And then finally, joining the CLEAN network is another great way to get involved, because you get on the email list and you can just really see what else is happening in the world of climate education. And I think, is that sort of the last of our slides?
I think so.
Yeah, so we ended it there, and I included my email address here, katie.boyd@colorado.edu. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I help to manage this. Anna Gold is one of the chairs for the CLEAN project, so she works here at Education Outreach with me as well. So she's another person who's knowledgeable about CLEAN that we included her contact info as well. But I'm probably the best one to contact about it if you do have any questions. And I think that's all I was going to say today. Was there anything else?
It's interesting. There's a lot of information in the CLEAN site that you can kind of dig into and wander around in at different points, but it is a really powerful resource that's solid educationally and scientifically, so it's helpful to, and we wanted to be able to bring that to folks and just explore it. Do feel free to shoot Katie questions or any kind of issues you're having. I'm nominating you for this, Katie,
Yeah,
because she's the person who's on the other end, the back end of the resource and of the sort of network space. So she's really helpful to be, and very responsive to be able to get at any problems you're having. So yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time tonight and finding everyone on the call, and Katie and Ellen and Amber as well. And I know Elizabeth's on the call as well, our environmental education person at the state in Washington. So thank you all very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for organizing this and getting us all together, Deb. This was really great. So I think we have plenty of time still for questions. If anybody has any questions they want to throw out there, or comments, criticisms.
There's actually, this is a good comment. So is there a website, is there a deck like this? And I'm happy for folks to use this deck if they want to if they want to share this with their colleagues. Is there anything that they can do if they want to share this more broadly in their buildings?
Yeah, and actually that's a really good question, because it's not live yet, but we're trying to develop a teacher ambassador program where we have sort of slide decks and other resources to help teachers who want to present this or give this to their colleagues, either just through sort of department meetings or, you know, presenting it at their local school districts or whatever it is. We're trying to kind of create a program to help teachers do that. So we're working on it, in the process of it. So right now I don't have anything like that, but I did post the PDF of these slides online, and please feel free to share them. We are all about trying to get word out about clean, and I don't have any problems with somebody using these slides. If you're interested, I have no problem, if Deb's okay with it, with giving the sort of Google slide version. That's what we worked in. So we can give the link to that as well. And yeah, please use it and share it widely, and let me know if you have any questions about doing that, and connect with me if you want to do that too. And if you're interested in continuing to do that in the future, especially reach out, because like I said, we might be able to give some stipends for helping us to do that into the future. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody's in Washington State specifically, I'm happy to help you and think through with you presentations in this space, and others in other places. Let us know, because I've presented for Clean over the years at different points, just because I value their resources, and I really want this type of resourcing for teachers to be available. So, as much I have other presentations that are sort of more interactive to do in a hands-on setting. So shoot an email out to me. I'll stick my email in there too.
Thanks, Deb.
So if you want to find something, just let us know. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. I haven't seen another question so far, but Patrick mentioned something, and I think it's really good just to make a quick announcement here. So Patrick Chandler is apparently on the call. Hey, Patrick. And he's actually our Clean Fellows, and he's so great and helps manage the Clean Network. But he's actually going to be in Washington in July. There's a conference happening with ESIP, which is the Earth Science Information Partners, I think is what it stands for. And he's actually going to be helping to do a portion of a teacher workshop that this ESIP group is putting on in July in Tacoma. So if you're in that area, please reach out to Patrick or myself if you're interested in joining, because I think they have actual stipends for teachers to help them with travel costs to attend. So yes, please reach out to us if you're interested in learning more about clean and just climate education in general. I think he's going to kind of introduce and mention clean, but also just generally talk about how do we teach about climate in the classroom. So just an announcement there.
Perfect.
And did we have any other questions come in? Or?
Okay, sit down, put your feet out.
All right. Amber, did you want to say anything?
Oh, let's see. I haven't.
Thank you. I didn't need to contribute much beyond saying thank you. And based on the comments, very useful webinar for everyone. So thanks again for organizing and sharing this information.
Absolutely. And we'll send the link out to the state folks so they can get the virtual link.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I haven't seen other questions. I did see Elizabeth mention she had trouble with the Clean Network. Elizabeth, please reach out to me, kitty.boyd@colorado.edu, or Patrick Chandler. He put his email in the chat here as well. He manages the Clean Network. I feel like that's something we can work on offline and help get you connected into the Clean Network. So. If we don't have any other questions, though, thank you all so much for joining us, and thanks, Deb, for organizing. And this is great, and it'll go on our website, so please share the slides and videos with anyone else you think will be interested.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.